Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, sift through the sources, and really bring you the crucial insights on today's big topics. And today, we're diving deep into some pretty significant recent events. We're looking at the Israel-Iran conflict, specifically the U.S. involvement in a recent operation, and, well, Iran's immediate response. We've been digging into a live report from Al Jazeera and also details from this document, codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer. Our goal here is simple. Extract the key knowledge, the important takeaways from these sources, and give you a clear picture of what's going on.
Absolutely. And understanding these specific actions, these reactions, I mean, as they're reported, it's just crucial right now. It really helps grasp the current tensions, the diplomatic stress points, and what might come next.
Right. So let's get into it. Here's where it gets really interesting, this military operation, the scale of it. It has a code name, Operation Midnight Hammer.
It's a very evocative name.
It is. And the document we looked at describes it as, get this, a vast raid involving more than 125 military aircraft.
Wow. 125. That number alone.
Serious volumes, doesn't it?
It really does. What does that scale signal to you just off the bat?
Well, first, it's an undeniable show of force, massive force. It signals capacity, reach. Second, it points to incredibly complex coordination. I mean, 125 aircraft don't just show up. That requires meticulous planning, logistics, deconfliction. It's a statement in itself, strategically, designed to perhaps overwhelm, psychologically, too.
And the details keep coming. The report highlights it as the largest ever strike by B-2 stealth bombers. The B-2s. Why is that specific detail so significant?
Right, the B-2s. They're built for deep penetration, for getting past sophisticated air defenses long range, using them in this number, setting a record. It strongly suggests the targets were, well, heavily defended, or maybe deep inside Iran. Or perhaps they just wanted maximum surprise, minimum risk to the planes. It points to the high value placed on hitting those targets successfully. And then there's the weapon payload. The report mentions the first use in battle of the GBU-57, America's largest bunker buster bomb.
Yes, the GBU-57, the MOP massive ordnance penetrator.
So this isn't just about a bigger explosion, right? There's more to it.
Oh, definitely not just a bigger bang. Using the GBU-57 for the first time in combat here, it's a major signal. It says the U.S. is willing and able to go after deeply buried, hardened targets, things previously thought perhaps invulnerable. It changes the calculus for Iran, you know. What can they actually protect underground? It sends a message, and maybe nowhere is truly safe from that kind of ordnance.
The logistics alone sound, frankly, mind-boggling. 7 bombers flew east over the Atlantic from White Man Air Force Base in Missouri on the 37-hour mission to Iran and back. 37 hours.
It's staggering. Think about the sheer effort involved, not just the flight crews, but the support network. A 37-hour round trip from the U.S. Midwest, that's global reach demonstrated. It needs constant refueling, right, in-flight tankers.
Yeah, the source mentions it.
Yeah.
Helped by in-flight refueling tankers and fighter jets to sweep the skies ahead of them.
Exactly. It underscores the immense resources, the precision planning needed to pull off something like that. It's not just about the bombers themselves.
And there was even deception involved. Get this. Decoy planes flew west over the Pacific to confuse anyone watching their movement.
Ah, now that's fascinating. That adds another layer.
What does that tell us?
It tells us this wasn't just about overwhelming force, but also sophisticated strategy, intelligence, counterintelligence, misdirection. It's about maximizing the chances of success for the main strike force, increasing surprise, maybe managing responses by sowing confusion. It's psychological warfare almost, alongside the physical attack.
And it wasn't just air power, the naval component. Dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles were also fired at Iran from submarines.
Right, so a coordinated multi-platform attack, air and sea.
And the targets, specifically mentioned, key nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Why those 3? What's their significance?
Well, Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan. They are really the core of Iran's known nuclear program. Natanz is a major enrichment site. Fordow is another one, famously built under a mountain, heavily fortified. Isfahan is crucial for uranium conversion, part of the fuel cycle, hitting those specific sites. It's a direct strike at the heart of their nuclear capabilities, clearly intended to degrade, maybe halt their progress.
Now, here's a really critical point from the immediate aftermath, according to the report. Iranian forces did not respond at the time of the strikes.
That's very interesting. The lack of immediate military response.
What could that mean? Shock, or something more calculated?
It could be a few things. Maybe the sheer speed and scale were just overwhelming, a sort of operational paralysis. Or it could be a deliberate strategic choice. Avoid immediate escalation against a clearly superior force in that moment, perhaps deciding to absorb the hit and plan a different kind of response later. Asymmetric, diplomatic, something else. It certainly prevented an instant tit for tat, which changes the immediate dynamic.
The American side, meanwhile, was quick to frame it, President Trump claiming the strikes were very successful. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, quoted in the document, boasting the scope would take the breath away. Very sort of language.
Clearly intended to project success and dominance, yes.
Okay, so that's the military side, the operation itself. But then the diplomatic fallout. How did Iran react? Let's shift to that. Our Al Jazeera source focuses on Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araqi, and he came out swinging, verbally.
Yes, this is where the narrative shifts dramatically. Araqi accused the U.S. quite directly of betraying diplomacy. That phrase, betraying diplomacy, coming from a top diplomat, it's loaded. It signals a deep breach of trust from their perspective, especially tying it to the U.S. joining Israel in the air campaign. It's basically saying you broke the framework, the diplomatic path.
And he didn't just leave it at an accusation. He issued a very stark warning. He said the U.S. will face everlasting consequences.
Everlasting consequences, that's quite the phrase. It's powerful, deliberately ambiguous.
What do you read into that ambiguity?
Well, it doesn't necessarily lock them into immediate military action, though you can't rule that out. It suggests something more long-term. A fundamental shift in how Iran might engage or disengage could mean proxy actions, maybe accelerating nuclear work again, a total freeze on certain diplomatic channels. It's a declaration that this event has changed the game permanently, from their view. It opens a new, potentially much more hostile chapter.
And interestingly, Iraqi specifically called the targeted sites Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, peaceful nuclear installations.
Right. And that framing is crucial. It's part of the narrative battle.
How so?
By calling them peaceful, Iran directly counters the U.S.-Israeli justification for the strike, which implies these sites posed a threat. It's aimed at the international audience, trying to paint Iran as the victim of aggression against legitimate civilian activities. It highlights the core disagreement over the nature and intent of Iran's nuclear program, essential for shaping global opinion.
Of course, the U.S. had an immediate retort to Iraqi's warning. President Trump warned against retaliation, saying, quote, "Remember, there are many targets left."
A very direct counter-warning. It serves a couple of purposes. One, deterrence. Don't retaliate, because there's more where that came from. Two, maintaining pressure. This isn't necessarily over. It keeps the threat perception high, keeps Iran guessing, a strategic tool in itself.
So let's just recap what we've sort of pulled apart here. On one hand, this massive military operation, Operation Midnight Hammer, huge scale, B-2s, the new bunker buster, incredible logistics, and paired with that, Iran's initial lack of military response right at that moment.
Exactly. And then almost immediately the pivot to this very strong diplomatic counterattack from Iran, the betraying diplomacy accusation, the everlasting consequences warning. It really underscores how the conflict plays out on multiple levels simultaneously. Military action followed instantly by intense narrative warfare and diplomatic signaling.
And all this happening under the shadow of further U.S. warnings. It really paints a picture of, well, extremely high tension.
It does. And it highlights why you really need to track both the kinetic actions, the strikes, and the diplomatic language. Both shape what happens next in this region.
So here's something for you, our listeners, to think about after this deep dive. You have this huge military show of force in Operation Midnight Hammer. Then you have Iran's immediate, very severe warning of everlasting consequences. How do you think those consequences might actually play out long-term, beyond just immediate retaliation? And what does this quick shift to strong diplomatic language tell us about modern conflict itself? Or maybe the words, the narrative, become the first battleground after the physical one? What stands out most to you from all this? Lots to consider. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.